We're with Michael Mingoia. Did I say that right?
You did.
I was always afraid of Michael. It's got an A-E-L. It's crazy.
Just like it's spelled.
But you are an artist. You're a scenic designer. You have done so much in what we call the applied arts that it is impossible to contain your career in a single thought, let alone a lifetime, it seems, right? I mean, you've done everything.
I wouldn't say that, but I've done a lot in the applied arts, yes.
Yeah. Well, for the sake of our viewers, what is an applied art?
There used to be these rigid distinctions between the fine and applied arts, and so it was a way to, I think the applied arts are a way that people use their art skills and creative skills and apply them to the world at large.
And that world for you has been everything from the Oakland Zoo to recently doing a 10-foot tall shoe for an awareness campaign, to the lamps that ended up on Friends, the TV show, to local theater design. I mean, it's a pretty wide swath of work you've done.
Yes, it is.
How does one get up one day and say, I shall design the lamp?
It's pretty organic. It's pretty organic. Actually the lamps came about from, we had moved up to Sebastopol, my wife Diane Bailey and I, we had moved up to Sebastopol when the great exodus from Los Angeles in our social circle kind of happened. And
so we're like what, early 90s there?
89.
89. Oh, you were ahead of the curve.
89. The earthquake year.
Right. Good point.
So we moved up here the earthquake year. My brother-in-law happened to have a client in the neighborhood, and so he had been driving through, and so we were living in Los Angeles. I was a graduate student at UCLA, and just decided to move up here. We just wanted to chase a life more than chase a career. So we just moved up here at the time. So really it all came about because we opened an art supply store in Sebastopol. There were no art supply stores. Everybody's
genius.
So we thought, let's open an art supply store.
Being artists.
Yes, being artists. So we did do that. And
artists, not retail specialists.
No, not retail specialists. And we did not succeed in the art supply store. We learned a lot about Sebastopol. And if you're not on that block, you're not going to succeed in a retail business.
It is one block.
It's one block.
Yeah, totally.
And so fortunately, we didn't stay in that business very long, but one of the things that did come out of it was we did sell a line of handmade papers.
Right.
And so once we closed, I still had stacks of these beautiful papers. So one day when I was at the dump, I picked up a few pieces of stone, countertop stone.
This is back when Recycle Town was a big thing, and you could get that kind of material.
Yeah, it was. They were just throwing. It was. I was at the dump. They were throwing it away.
Amazing.
So I picked up a few pieces and brought them back, and then I made a lamp. And
so you used the paper.
I used the paper as a shade, and I used the broken stone as a base, and
that's awesome.
And so I started my lamp making business. And so here in Sebastopol.
And you had a line that was represented like 200 stores at one point.
Yeah, we were all over the country. I mean, really, if you think about it, there's a great little store in every little town across this country. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Every neighborhood has a cool little store. So, and it was early on in the sort of artisanal lighting and the recycling phase.
I remember that was just the trend.
Way at the beginning, exactly.
And now it's all organic lighting and gluten-free lighting.
And the papers were, some of them were recycled paper, made out of recycled paper.
Great. And I think I'm familiar with this work, actually. It's really thick paper, and it's just got a good
Some can be.
Yeah.
I had some that were just automated, made out of the funny papers.
Oh,
you could read little bits of words and see bits of images in the paper shade.
That's great.
But that was way early on.
And so a set designer ends up acquiring a couple of these lamps, or did they order from you directly?
I believe that the scenic designer for Friends had a shop in West Hollywood, and he was one of my clients. And so one day I had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
One day I just was watching Friends, and there was Jennifer Aniston's face as big as my lamp. So
that's great. That's great. That's a feather in your cap, and it just goes to show you never know how your work is going to affect the world.
It's a minor thing. There were 2 lamps of mine on that, and they moved one of them around in various locations for several seasons.
Right.
One stayed in the same spot for several years.
I love how you track this, because you have to know what's happening with your lamps.
Because I had no way of knowing other than when I watched it, there it was, and they're in Monica's bedroom, and now look, it's over there behind the sofa. it is interesting when I think that, millions of people across the globe for a long time kind of get an image of me flashed to them.
Your work has been seen by more people than probably the Mona Lisa.
It's kind of freaky when I think about it.
Yeah.
People in Japan in 20 years will, they don't know it.
Right. Your work is now on Netflix. They just bought all the back episodes of Friends.
Yeah. It was on seasons, most of the seasons.
Yeah. Too bad about the residual thing.
Yeah.
Just kidding. If you had a penny, no. But that's just one iteration of the many things you do. I mean, I've got here our producer John prepared some really interesting visuals that I hope we can cut to. Just like your external design, like for it looks like mini golf and all that. But this picture here of the open lot through the cyclone fence with
that's interesting.
The red door.
That was really an early piece. When I first moved to California, I lived in Venice, California.
Yeah, so did I. I lived on Woodlawn off of Abbot Kinney.
Okay, we were on Navy Street, right where Davy Jones Liquor Locker is.
I know it well. I said out loud.
2 doors away.
Yeah, that's great.
So we had an empty lot next to us, and so I did several pieces on the concept of home.
Yeah.
At the time, there were a lot of homeless in the area. So that piece was one of several commenting on the notion of home and where we all live. And there was an interesting, I had a little tiny interesting story about that.
Yeah.
We could see all of that we could look down on that lot and see everyone walking by. And one day a homeless woman walked by.
Yeah.
And she was a heavyset woman. She walked by and she stopped and she looked back and forth. She grabbed her shirt, she yanked up her top, exposed her naked breasts to this installation, pushed her shirt down, and went on her way.
That's the expose yourself to art. That is awesome. I think you're a rock star, obviously. But for this kind of installation, this did something you did on your own. It
was, yes.
I love the appropriation of the space. Just seeing an empty lot.
It was there. There was already a fence there, a hurricane fence, front and back. We lived next door to it, so we could monitor it, and it was an opportunity.
Because I think this installation started the gentrification of Venice.
It was a comment on the gentrification.
But this is marvelous. And we have another one here, the shopping cart at the beach.
Yeah.
The segment's going to wrap, so I'll have to come back to it in a second. But what are you saying? I think I know what you're saying, but you're going to have to tell us when we come back.
I don't know. A lot of times it's just, I'm not really quite sure what I'm saying. A lot of this has to do with materials and objects and.
Okay, well, hold the thought. We'll come right back. We're with Michael Mingoia, the artist, sculptor, lamp designer. Right back.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
We're with Michael Mingoia, who's an artist, a scenic designer, a designer of all stripes, doing a lot of installation, exhibits, fanfare and fun stuff across the board, indoors and outdoors, big stuff, little stuff. It's amazing the scope of your work and scale often of your work. Before we get into the shopping cart, we kind of teased in the last segment, you just made a 10-foot tall shoe.
Yes.
Yeah. Why?
There is a charitable organization actually called Walk a Mile in Our Shoes, and it's the International Men's March to End Rape, Sexual Assault, and Gender Violence.
Yeah.
Men actually get sponsors to walk in high heel shoes.
Oh, as men?
Yes,
that's
they
great.
wear the shoes. So this was a 10-foot tall fiberglass shoe in 3 parts with a chair in it that they used as a promotional piece to kind of just get some recognition and obviously raise money.
definitely catches the eye and invites you to understand, what it's actually there for. And,
exactly.
And,
a big red shiny shoe.
Yeah, no, it's
very
good.
big red shiny shoe.
When you approach a project like that, especially something of that scale, what's the first thing? The sketch?
Get a shoe.
Get a shoe, right? Right.
That was basically, I got a shoe.
Whose shoe was it?
It was off, I don't remember. It was a brand new shoe ordered online.
Okay.
And I think the process was basically, it was very logical. You look at the shoe, you grit out the sole.
Are we talking Manolo
slice
Blahnik?
it in half.
Yeah.
See what the profile. The shoe had to be broken down into 3 pieces, into a sole and then 2 pieces for the body.
Yeah.
The body was locked together with coffin locks.
Lovely. I didn't know that was a thing. That's awesome.
And then the shoe, the sole slid on and was just bolted on.
Wow.
So it's all for transport.
So, I mean, besides the creative aspect,
Right.
there's also like a sort of logistical engineering aspect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I imagine a lot of your work actually uses both sides of the brain like that.
Yeah, it does. I try to. Yeah, you have to kind of think in both ways all the time. I really don't like to make things difficult for anybody. So I'm not somebody. I'm really aware of fabrication methods and techniques and installation methods and techniques and. Really, there's no need. I'm not hierarchical in that respect. I don't really think that there's only one great way and everything falls below it.
Right.
There's a lot of great ways to do things. So.
And you don't do like the installations yourself generally.
Yeah, sometimes.
Oh, you do?
A lot
Okay,
of times. Yeah.
Well, what are your inspirations? Like I see a lot of Klaus Oldenburg, or Claude Oldenburg. Rather.
Scale. Okay, scale is probably a really common thing. Is scale, changes in scale, either bigger or smaller,
right.
are something that is very intriguing to people across the globe, across all cultures.
What do you think that is?
I have no idea why.
You
I don't really care,
you take
actually,
these,
but
it's like Alice in Wonderland, right?
Yeah. Scale is a magical thing. I think it makes us rethink our relationship to each other and the world in some way.
Yeah, that's interesting. What are other inspirations?
Architecture,
right.
Truly.
And you work in architecture.
I did years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago, I just, a lot of my career, like I said, it's been pretty organic, and I've been working in the film industry, and I kind of wanted to get out of it. And
well, let's talk about what you were doing in the film industry.
I moved to Los Angeles. I moved there because I'd been working in Rochester as a production coordinator for a photographer. So I just wanted to get out of the cold climate. And I had a friend out here in Los Angeles. Yeah. So just moved out and found some success in the film industry.
Yeah. Anything we know?
Well, kind of. Yeah, kind of. I actually found paying work within like 4 months of arriving in Los Angeles, which was sort of miraculous.
That's a record,
to everybody else.
Yeah.
And I was working on a film set, and I was working and got a paycheck, which was really kind of miraculous.
Well, what was it?
Chattanooga Choo Choo.
Nice.
And who was in it?
Oh God, I don't know.
Oh, come on.
Ava. You gotta.
Do know? Barbara Eden and Joe Namath.
Yes. No, I didn't know that. Wow.
Barbara
really?
Eden and Joe Namath. Yes. But anyway.
Nice.
Once I worked a few jobs in the film industry, and then I saw those things in the film industry, and then I signed on to do a film with Ruth Gordon and Jonathan Winters, and I was thrilled to death.
Yeah, great comic performance.
And it was 5 days a week and 8 hours a day, which was also I was thrilled about.
That is amazing.
So because Ruth
to
Gordon
work
was
as
an
an
old lady by then.
You're right.
Right.
That's right.
So it fell apart the day before we were supposed to start filming.
And this was important.
I can't do this. I can't live my life like this.
Yeah.
So that's when I found the job with the architect Craig Hodgins, who is a really important architect, actually. Frank Gehry is his contemporary and friend, calling the office. And,
that's great.
And I worked on Roger Corman's house. He was on, that was the big...
I love it, the B film.
The B film, yeah.
He's awesome.
He was renovating that.
So, I mean, did you make models of houses? Or?
Made models of houses, models of drive-through cookie shops that fit in one parking space, and all sorts of things, really. It was he was an interesting man. He had a degree in playwriting. He had a degree in automotive design, and he had a degree in stage design.
So Shakespeare on Wheels never happened?
Architecture, I mean.
Was he trying to unify that, or did he just go with architecture? Yeah.
He was just a Renaissance guy.
Yeah.
He was fascinating. And so we did a stage set for the inaugural show in Los Angeles, Automobile and Culture. We, for a play in their loading dock. And we did a charrette, a competition to redesign Little Tokyo, where we were in the museum on exhibit for like 3 days, like you couldn't leave.
Wow.
You could like only leave for like 2 hours or so. I mean, literally, people were wandering around us.
And you've done local stage design too. We were talking earlier about the set you did for God's Country, which was, an amazing set, as I remember. I mean, well, the floor especially.
The floor was, yeah.
No, that was the Constitution, was it not?
It was,
First Amendment?
3 documents.
Okay.
It was the Constitution, the Bill of Rights,
Yeah.
and the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
So, you know, you couldn't really read it. I mean, the vantage point in that theater, the ceiling was like 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
You couldn't really get a look at the floor.
It was like a black box.
It was a black box.
Right.
I think it seated 150 people. Mm-hmm. And so imagine, if you will, the parchment paper document with the calligraphy that you find at the school supply house of each of those things. But if you cut that document into a shape whereby those sort of puzzle pieces fit together, they then formed a swastika.
Oh my God, how smart. Wow.
And so you really didn't know that, but it was a way for me to reproduce the document, and all I had to do was it was a scenic device.
And this matches the theme of the play.
Yeah.
Not just for kids.
No, it was about, it was about neo-Nazis.
Yeah,
yes,
no,
exactly.
of course, yeah.
And
Very
so that
smart.
way it allowed me to write calligraphically. I'd begin the line where you could read.
Yeah.
You know, I'd begin the line however it was supposed to be from that document, but then I could just end it at that point. So I didn't have to really be true to the scenically.
Right.
It was just a device. And so the audience didn't really see that because it wasn't evident. I knew it.
I'm sure they felt it though, subliminally.
To me, it was the entire play all in one visual image.
Super smart. Let's come back to that in a second. We're with Michael Mingoia, scenic designer, artist, lamp maker. I know that the list goes on, but we'll be right back.
If you don't fix them, sparks from dragging tow chains could cause a wildfire, and that could be scary. Only you can prevent wildfires.
We're with artist and designer Michael Mingoia. We're talking about sort of just a general bird's eye view of so much. You've done so much work, and it's fascinating. But we were just talking about some of his set design and a really extraordinary piece he did for God's Country, which I happened to see when I was a critic for the Bohemian. But another set you did, also for a local production, was for the Adding Machine, and this is a great one too because it's the floor has exploded with numbers. And what I love is how you take a space that's often underutilized in the theater, the stage itself.
Right.
And really use it to great effect. So can we talk a little bit about the Adding Machine?
Well, the Adding Machine actually is, for me, actually one of my creative highlights. It was a wonderful production. The concept was brilliant. It was written in 1923 by Elmer Rice, and about the disenfranchisement of the American worker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff, yeah.
Yes, it's interesting. And so...
prescient, yeah.
Yeah, it really, and it was a wonderful production. And for me in that theater, it was theater in the round. And since it was theater in the round, the floor was the set. It was the backdrop to every action on stage.
Right, because you can't have a wall.
You can't, there are no walls. And so for me, I really enjoyed working in that manner. I really loved being brief. You really only need to suggest. And so when you suggest a few things and let people fill it in, I think that you end up with sort of a bigger set design in some respects.
That's a great observation, and I think trusting the audience to bring their own imagination to it, and trusting that they're smart, they're going to understand thematically what you're trying to accomplish, and it comes off economically, it comes off effectively, but it's aesthetically, it's eye-catching.
That was a great set. That was a great set, and I had a blast. I mean, it was all done with just different sized rollers, and in
stencils?
person, no stencils. It was all freehand with different sized rollers.
Wow.
And I started with a progression of in values of grays and a progression in sizes of rollers. So the numbers got smaller as they got darker. So.
How do you think your sets affect the actors in the play in this context?
I try to think of my sets as another character in the play.
Right.
I really try to get them done, or at least get them in process and really materialized for the actors as soon as possible, because I do think of them that way.
Yeah, and I think there's an ambient effect that it has.
How could there not be?
Yeah.
I mean, how could there not be?
This is a dizzying floor to some degree.
And at one point in this was a great set. At one point in this, there was a scene called the Elysian Fields, and there were a couple of stagehands who came out in overalls and scattered fake flowers all over the set. So they were bright and colorful on this field of gray.
Right.
And then at some point they came out and swept them up with brooms. And it was really
but that's a metaphor in itself, there's something magic happening there. Yeah. Well, let's talk about your creative process. How do you ideate this kind of result?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Is it all intuitive for you, or do you?
It's pretty intuitive. I mean, I don't know that there's any actor or any artist who it isn't intuitive.
I'll say though, like your sets, there's definitely some the fingerprints of an intellectual process on these. I mean, using
that
the
could happen,
documents.
I suppose.
Well, the documents you used for God's Country, and then arranging this wants to go.
I mean, I think about this.
Yeah,
clearly,
that's your process.
No, I do have a process. I feel like I need a starting off point. I need something to grab onto.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it doesn't necessarily. I don't know that there's any commonality to what I grab onto, but if there's something to grab onto, or a limitation or a constrictor, sometimes that is helpful.
Yeah, but that seems like that's the instinctual impulse. That's something that happens, and then you can.
Yeah. Things don't just fly into your brain. They just. I see something. I clearly you have a meeting. You read the play.
Right. What about for Shakespeare in the Park? How do you approach that? Because that's a whole different kind of. It's usually a proscenium. It's outdoors. It's loud. There's people.
Boy, Shakespeare in the Park, spectacle. That's how I approach that. So I know that in theater they want theater.
Right.
They've suspended their disbelief. I let them suspend their disbelief.
They give you that much.
They know that this is really not 1573, and that these are actors on a stage. So I give them that.
Yeah.
So especially with Shakespeare in a Park, you can really go wild with the theater aspect of it.
And so what do you do? What do you do? Do we have a picture of that here? Maybe.
I don't know that we do. I did a Midsummer Night's Dream here in Sebastopol, and I put real sod on the stage.
Wow.
Oh yeah. I mean,
it was a living stage.
It was a living stage in the park. Exactly, a living stage.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
10 days.
And you had to keep it alive.
And we had to water it every day. And at the end,
was there a stage manager cursing your name by the end of it, or?
Yeah, they weren't really, because it was it's not lightweight material. But I got it donated.
That's great.
And we didn't have to paint anything, right? But we laid down visqueen, and in the 2 weeks or so that stage was up. Yeah. In that time, the roots of that grass had made its way into that plywood.
There's something kind of wonderful about that, Also, you probably had the only play that ever had to mow its set at some point.
We actually, I don't know, we didn't mow it.
So what's next for you, man? What are you working on now?
Right now I'm working on an exhibit for Yitzhak Rabin. It's the anniversary of his death.
Oh, wow.
For the Jewish Federation down in Berkeley.
How is that taking shape for you?
We're just at the beginning stages, so we're just collecting some curatorial material. I'm kind of having to goose them on that. It happens a lot. Some of the exhibits that I've worked on that I really like to work on often involve a lot of disparate material.
Right.
Or things. They have
disparate themes.
Or concepts that they have, but they don't have material for. And so right now we're at that stage of gathering this material, and really what is it that you want people to come away with.
Right.
Sometimes it's a little difficult to get a story and a script out of a curator.
Yeah. When you're working with builders, so what's your relationship like with them? I mean, do they? When they're implementing your design, are you on them and?
No. You're
not
like I said, I'm not hierarchical. I mean, I realize there are people with expertise in every field, and builders have
their own expertise.
And they may know things that I don't, and so I really don't grip ideas that tightly. If they need to make changes, like I said, there's not one way that's perfect and everything else is less.
Yeah, it's just saw it on the stage, right?
Yeah. I try to keep this in mind. I mean, it's this is all fluff in some respect. It's real, but it's not heart surgery. No one will be harmed.
Right.
If we put on a okay exhibit. If nobody sees this play or whatever.
But you're still doing something extraordinary, and you're still creating the sort of conditions for magic. Whether it be an art installation or or a play.
Yeah, I suppose I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I really kind of think it's as in mankind. I think it's really kind of the only thing we don't screw up. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
The arts are really the only thing that we started doing immediately after we dropped our tails.
Yeah.
That's the next thing we did was to sing and to dance, to draw and to paint.
Thank you, Michael Mingoia, for joining us. I very much look forward to what you do next, and I hope you come back on the show, and we'll follow up then.
If you'll have me. Thanks, Daedalus.
Absolutely.